I really think
I
it's
just
gonna
want
be
to next all about it.
easier to not.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with me, send it to my personal, my phone.
All right, don't say in front of Bridget.
You ready?
No.
All right, we are going to record this meeting so that we can share it with others. So we kindly ask that everybody hold their questions until the end. We obviously have a group online as well, so I'm gonna let Natalie take it over since we are recording and go from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bridget. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. I'm Natalie Yaknich. I'm a representative from ERChealth that has now been working with the City of Independence for going on 4 years. And for those who are attending virtually, just to make sure that you are aware, we are recording this presentation. And so we would ask that you reserve and hold comments and questions until the end, just so we can preserve the clarity of the actual recording. So they're very welcome. Make note of questions and we will address those once we hit the end of today's content. So my purpose, my role today is to take a deeper dive into the ERChealth app that we are now utilizing for all ERChealth and Anthem-based programming, okay? So when I was out here during open enrollment, we talked about the fact that we were sunsetting the relationship we had with mobile health consumer, and we were moving that experience into ERChealth, which is Anthem's app. The reason we made that decision was to streamline the number of apps our members would need in order to have the full experience of all things Anthem and ERChealth, okay? So we had spent 7 years with mobile health consumer. They were a wonderful partner of ours. And in the transition, there have been a few bumpy pieces, so we appreciate your patience, of course, as we work through those. But I'm hopeful that today's content really gives you a good understanding of the information that's contained within ERChealth so that you can be as successful as possible utilizing this tool. The other piece to keep in mind is that although I'm speaking to you directly, you potentially have a spouse on the plan. So we would ask that you take this information home to help your spouse because we don't have any direct way within which to communicate with them, okay? So you have to be that person that ferries that message along to make sure that your spouse knows the resources and tools that are out there and then of course consequently can take advantage of those. So what you will see here, this slide, I will note, the presentation likely will be sent out after today's meeting. And there's actually a link in this particular slide that would take you to a web-based video that is 7 minutes long, just on general Sydney navigation. So it's a very, very nice tool. And this is again, something you could even show your spouse if they were curious, but it's gonna go over all the basics, how you view your Anthem ID card within the app, how you look at claims and their current status, how you can use features like Find Care to look for physicians or services that you may need. So it's that really general overview. So all Anthem members, regardless of whether they're in the ERChealth program, have that app experience. What we'll focus on today, of course, is the more specific pieces that pertain to ERChealth and some of the really nice features that I just think sometimes members miss when you're kind of tuned into the rewards and having that as your sole focus. So what I'm going to do is just start out talking about the reward menu. So this gives you the overview of the reward programs that are available to you and an enrolled spouse throughout the duration of this plan year. So for a refresher, our plan year always restarts July 1st and runs through June 30th of the following year. Okay, that's why we're always out in late May, early June doing open enrollment for the start of that plan year on the 1st of July. Okay, so when we think about this reward menu, there are important pieces or buckets that I just want you to be aware of. That first bucket is under preventive screenings. Okay, so this is an entirely new offering that we started on the 1st of July. Okay, the first of those noted items is that if you have a preventive exam at any point from July 1st of this year through June 30th of the following year, you would be eligible for a $100 reward for doing that, okay? Our rate of success with having those preventive exams at the City of Independence hovers around 98%, okay? You guys absolutely crush it each and every year with this initiative. And so that means really everybody should be reaping the reward or advantage of having that incentive that is available to you. Okay, the same would be true for a spouse. The next item under that preventive screenings bucket is cancer screenings. So you see that there are 4 cancer screenings noted here: mammogram, colonoscopy, prostate, and skin cancer. So based on that preventive exam, if your physician or whomever you're seeking care from feels it's important that based on your age and sex, you have a cancer screening, you would be eligible for one $50 reward in the course of the plan year for doing that, okay? So those are 2 brand new pieces that we're able to reward members with for the very first time related to preventive screenings. Now, one thing I do want to note here is that the time frame for payout of those is roughly 60 to 90 days after the visit has occurred. Okay, the reason there is that time frame is that your physician office has to submit the claim to Anthem. Anthem has to go through the claims approval process, and then all of that data flows into the right channels to make sure that that reward is issued to you. Okay, so all of that is contingent upon a preventive exam or wellness exam claim submission. Okay, so one thing, just kind of a kernel of advice that I would share with everybody is that if you get to that 60 to 90 day time frame and you have not seen that reward hit your Sydney Health app, that's definitely an opportunity for you can reach out to me directly. Many of you do, and I'm more than happy to field questions, connect with Bridget so she can get you in touch with me, or members of your healthcare committee, right? So in that instance, you do have a workaround scenario that we would have you go through, which is very easy, so that reward can be issued. We know at times you go, your physician may or may not code things correctly, and we wouldn't want to preclude anybody from earning that reward just because your physician office isn't coding that visit correctly, okay? So it's just important to know, we're here to help in those instances. The standard timeframe though is 60 to 90 days after the course of that visit. And that could be also cancer screening related. The steps tracking piece, so this is where, again, as we venture into a new platform, you know, I know that this is something that we had a ton of questions on. And a lot of that is kind of just that muscle memory around the fact that you're navigating to a different area than you historically were used to with mobile health consumer. So we will talk about that. I'm going to show you some really helpful images that I think will really clearly illustrate pieces for you. But at the end of the day, this particular reward is 25 total each month that you'd be eligible for if you hit the goal of 240,000 steps within the course of the month. And you do still have the opportunity to manually log your activity or to sync a wearable fitness device. Okay, so we'll talk about some of the pieces. Again, we're 6 weeks into this. We've seen a lot of questions come to us. And so we have a little bit of a better understanding of how to troubleshoot if you're having any difficulties with those 2 methods within which to track information. Health assessment is pretty standard, although we are on a new platform through City Health. Same type of questionnaire you probably are used to, where you answer questions about your health, and then you would be eligible for that reward. The last pieces that you're going to see in that far right bucket are Anthem-based programs. I will note these are the same programs that have historically been a part of this program. They are qualification based, okay? So not everybody is eligible for these 3 programs. Condition care is for folks who actually have a diagnosed chronic condition. Think of things like asthma, diabetes, COPD, those types of things will qualify for condition care. Future Moms is for mom on the plan who is expecting. I will say that come open enrollment next year, the program is going to do a little bit of a metamorphosis to a Future Families program. I don't have all those details yet, but it's going to be a little bit more comprehensive. And then the last piece is well-being coach, which is coaching in 2 specific areas: tobacco cessation and weight loss. So those are the qualifications for those specific Anthem-based programs, okay? Now, I talked about the preventive screening bucket and the fact that those rewards would hit your account 60 to 90 days after that service has been conducted. The other 3 buckets, steps tracking, health assessment, and Anthem programs, those rewards should hit your account within 24 to 48 hours after you complete an objective. So those are much more rapid, and those issuing on those rewards comes to your account within a day or 2. Okay. All right, so this is where we just took a moment to talk about the fact that those timeframes are available to you for those rewards to be issued. So this is one that probably most of you, by show of hands, how many of you have registered for Sydney? Okay, a vast majority, but for anybody who doesn't, and for anybody who listens to this recording at a future date, some basic information about registering. So Sydney, obviously, you can download from Google Play or the App Store. You would select, obviously, employer, individual, Medicare, and student, because you are under an employer-sponsored medical plan. And then it's gonna ask you for some basic information once you click not signed up. And the key really to that, and I think for, especially for those of you who are interacting with new hires, potentially having conversations with them, as soon as that new hire has their Anthem member ID, so that's a unique member ID that everybody has who's on the Anthem plan, you would be able to register for City Health and begin earning rewards. So I know a lot of you help and assist your coworkers in this way, so it's really important to know that once that member ID is available, you can go ahead and get started. That is a change from our mobile health consumer days. Back when we were using mobile health consumer, new plan members typically had a 30-day wait from the time they became effective with the plan to start earning rewards. This is going to be much more rapid, okay? So it's just a good piece to know in general. All right, so this is, I think, again, I would encourage everybody to watch that 7-minute just general overview of all things Sydney. But the My Health dashboard is really where we live when we think about the program elements that are tied into your member experience. So that's the piece that I always want you to think about when it comes to wellness programs, those types of things. Those are always going to live under that My Health dashboard area, okay? And a really key piece with that is for those of you who are in the room and who are observing the screen, if you look at the image and you look at the cell phone, there are 5 icons on that very bottom row: home, claims, care, pharmacy, and more, okay? None of this is My Health dashboard, right? So the way within which you locate that health dashboard is by selecting more, and then you're gonna get a full menu of options, okay? So again, I really wanna make it apparent that that's really where all the health and wellness related services live within that experience. And so what you're seeing here, of course, is that menu. Okay, so obviously there's always more services available to you. The buttons along the bottom are kind of your high touch points. But then again, My Health dashboard is where we're going to be living for most of our program and information. So just some basics related to the rewards navigation and how you understand what's actually available to you. So once you hit My Health dashboard, the next step is the need to scroll down, okay? So you need to scroll past a couple of different areas in order to see the My Rewards button, okay? So again, we're living in Health Dashboard and we need to scroll to see that My Rewards area. Once you click on that My Rewards area, that's when that same menu of services that I just discussed is going to populate for you, okay? And what's really important is that you see you're going to have your wellness wheel to show you your total eligible amount in this plan year, which is 300, and then your progress toward earning that total of 300 in this plan year, okay? So it really clearly illustrates how much you've earned, how much your total eligible earnings are, and then it lists all of those programs for you to click and connect with if you're interested in doing them, okay? So it's kind of the foundational building blocks. Where are the rewards? How do I get there? How do I see how much I'm eligible for? How much can I potentially earn? So from that point, let's talk a little bit about transitioning into the steps tracking program to make sure that you can see how you engage to earn that $25 activity reward monthly. So again, what we're seeing here is this My Health dashboard. So again, I was in the app, clicked more, clicked My Health dashboard. And what you see is that there's activity tracking and there is a steps area, okay? So this is where you are able to select manage devices and apps. You're able to go through the prompts to select which device you are looking to sync. And then you're gonna have a few additional prompts within which to build that bridge between the device you are syncing with that Sydney experience, okay? That's similar for anything that you would do, that's similar to how things were set up in mobile health consumer. And I do wanna make a few notes though. First and foremost, for individuals who don't have one of the standard devices to sync, okay, maybe you wear a wearable that's not as common. That device should be able to sync with either Google Fit or Apple Health. And then those tools can be used to sync with Sydney, okay? I was out a couple of weeks ago talking to employees and the woman had shared her device name with me. It was unfamiliar. She goes, oh yeah, I sync it with Google Fit, and then I build that bridge from Google Fit to Sydney to pull in that information, okay? The other piece I want to share is that this can be a little bit troublesome when you're trying to get your device to sync potentially for the first time, okay? What we're finding is that some of the challenges with syncing a device have to do with clearing your cache on your cell phone, okay? That has been kind of a big one that we've seen with the member inquiries that come to us. I'm having trouble, it doesn't seem like it's syncing correctly, you know, what is going on here? So that's a really important one. And so I will send to Bridget after the meeting a troubleshooting guide that shows you for both an Android and an Apple experience, how you do clear your cache in your cell phone, okay? So you'll want to try that and see if you can sync if you're having any issues with that type of scenario. There are other items for troubleshooting within that guide. And there is also a Sydney Health technical support team that you can reach out to if you are having any difficulties with that, okay? So those are kind of the first baseline steps if you encounter anything that's not functioning correctly. And if both of those channels and you're still not having success, please reach out to me so we can get the Sydney team engaged and escalate your issue and figure out what exactly is going on, okay? So that has been, I would say, probably one of the bumpier pieces with the transition that we've made. And so again, for those of you who've had success, that's wonderful. For those who have not, let's make sure we get you the right resources and tools to see if we can get you to be successful with that sync, okay? All right, manually logging activity, as you can imagine, pretty similar. You're gonna start off in that steps area, and then you're going to be able to manually log your results. Now, in this third image, this is a little bit different and I think a little bit better actually than the mobile health consumer experience, because you have the opportunity to select activity or steps, okay? So activity is really how it was always tracked in mobile health consumer, meaning you select your activity from a list, you enter the minutes that you engaged in that activity, and then the system converts that to steps for you. Okay, which works in many cases and is very useful. However, I've had members who, if they've had difficulties with syncing their device, but they can see how many steps they've had in a given day, actually having the opportunity to select steps and enter that number makes for a much easier experience to get that information entered. In the old days with mobile health, for people who were going that avenue, they would have to select their activity and do a guesstimation essentially with how much steps or how long they engage to get the right number of steps to ultimately be entered into that experience. So this, from a user standpoint, is definitely a better way to go about helping members who are manually logging information, okay? So all of those, of course, you can submit. Now, one thing I want to make mention of as well, because this is another big user benefit, is that in the mobile health consumer days, when it came to steps tracking, you had to enter all of your information for a given month by 11:59 PM on the last day of that month, okay? If we flip that calendar page into the next month, all of that data was essentially erased, and you would not have the opportunity for that information to be entered after that month closed, okay? That is no longer the Sydney experience. Okay, so even if you get busy, you know, I think I've even had communications from members within this group who said, you know, I went on vacation, I totally forgot, I was trying to enter information, what can I do? And in those days, there was really nothing you could do. but you can retroactively enter information in the Sydney experience. So it just provides a greater level of flexibility for you to be successful when it comes to getting that information entered in order to earn your reward, okay? All right, now this is the big question. This is the piece that, aside from kind of some of the thinking challenges we're working through, the question of how do I know where I'm at in my progress to my step goal for the month? Because if I'm asked to meet a goal for a month, it becomes really difficult to not see what that progress is leading to that goal, right? So this was a piece that it took a little bit of just understanding within the app, because I will admit that it's not an entirely intuitive experience in this way. But once you know where to find this information, it is very, very easy to see where this information is located. So again, we're in the My Health dashboard, we've checked or we've entered into the steps area. And this second image, this is where I feel like the piece is not entirely intuitive. Because it's a monthly step goal, you kind of assume you might select month, right? But month does not give you an actual accumulation for that month. What does give you an accumulation is the year, okay? So that's the piece you have to remember, is that year is where I can find my total steps for a given month, okay? So once you get into that, you will see all 12 months of the year. There's a bar for each of the months. You'll see that information here. And this is now where you can identify what your total steps have been, okay? So when you first go into this area, you've got the bar chart. You don't have these little boxes that say the total steps. It's just the bar itself, okay? So you can eyeball, you know, there's a marker for 250,000 steps. You can kind of see you're close or not close. But in order to know your actual exact number, you click on the bar and the bar will show you that entire step number, okay? The reason we have two images here to show you this is that you will see, for those of you who choose to sync a device and manually add activity, that bar is split into two different colors to signify the number of steps that you tracked manually and the number of steps that you've tracked through a wearable fitness device, okay? So it's one of the situations where you would need to click on the one color of the bar to get that total for your manually, I should say tracked, because it's the darker blue tracked steps. And then you would click the lighter bar to see your manually logged, and you would need to add those. So there is no addition feature, but at least it is the actual number of steps that you have in that specific month. If you're just exclusively manually logging or exclusively using your wearable, you wouldn't have the two numbers to add together. Make sense? Clear as mud? All right. So a little bit about redeeming rewards, because this is also a new member experience and one that I do feel is also a better experience for everybody. And surprising, again, we're in the My Health dashboard. That is where all this information is going to be living. You're going to scroll, of course, and then you're going to see this redeem rewards area. Okay, so again, once you know where to look for things, it starts to become a little bit more intuitive of where to find things. And you will see there is a menu. Once you have rewards that have been earned, you have a menu of 8 total different vendors that you could choose a reward from. If you remember, in our mobile health consumer environment, the only reward that we could issue was Amazon, okay? Which for a lot of people that satisfied, you know, what their needs were. But I have absolutely, over the last 7 years, encountered people who don't have Amazon accounts. They don't want Amazon accounts. And so the rewards program was essentially meaningless to them, right? So what you're seeing here is that you do still have the opportunity to earn an Amazon reward. There's an Apple gift card, Gap, Home Depot. There is a MasterCard virtual gift card, which is, I think, probably what I would be gravitating towards, since that gives you kind of a much broader picture and way to use those rewards that you're earning. TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods, and Sierra, Target, and then the last one that's not pictured but is available is Uber and Uber Eats, okay? So in addition to the fact that you have a greater menu of rewards within which to redeem, You can also split your reward amount if you want to do something like that. So if you get your $100 reward for having your preventive exam and you want 50 from Amazon and a $50 virtual MasterCard debit card, you could do that in today's environment. So there's a level of flexibility in how you choose to split those earnings that you have ultimately in your account. What is also nice is that in your reward area, then you can always see the cards within which you redeemed for rewards. So you have that information available. It lets you know the status. It lets you know how much the reward value was for that given card. And again, some of you might want to approve your rewards and get a big gift card at the end. It's entirely up to you. But that information always stays within the app, so you can always reference those cards. I know for some different reward programs unrelated to medical insurance, you get that code like in your email and then you forget where the code is at and you have to go hunt in your email. Just more difficult to keep track of, where in this experience, all of that information is going to live in that rewards area. Okay. All right, another piece that I think is just a really good one to bring to your attention. This is not something specific to ERChealth. All Anthem plan members have this particular feature, but this is new to Sydney as in the last really 6 months. And this is the nutrition tracker. If you had to guess where the nutrition tracker lived, it might be in the My Health dashboard, since that's where all of our wellness resources are really living. And so this nutrition tracker is something that they spend a good deal of money investing in its development. And you can think of it essentially as kind of like a MyFitnessPal. So, you pay for MyFitnessPal or other tools where you can log what you're eating, get your macros, get information about nutrition. That is actually all built into the Sydney experience. So if you have one of those apps that you're currently paying a subscription for, that's something you could look at the nutrition tracker, see if it meets your needs, and then potentially end that subscription. Again, keep some dollars in your pocket, since this is a service that is built into the Sydney experience. So a couple of things that I really, really like about it. One is probably not surprising as you're seeing that picture of the phone, is that you can actually take a picture of your meal or your plate, and the app is able to, with a 90% accuracy, identify the foods on that plate. So again, that is a huge time saver, right? So you don't have to spend all the time, entering information. There are over 5,000 food categories, 30,000 food types. And you'll see with these two images, again, that it gives you that, holistic overview of your macros, your calories, all of those pieces. Another reason I really like this nutrition tracker is that there is the option to send this information to your physician. So if you have an appointment upcoming and maybe something you've been working on with your doctor is nutrition, you're actually able to send this information to them. They can review it. They can have an understanding of what your progress is. So it's a really nice piece of cohesion that has this really high-powered tool that I don't think a lot of people have realized yet is available to them in the Sydney experience. So when it comes to, whoops, we got to circle a little ahead of time. Where do you find that? My Health dashboard. And then at the top, it's really the second section. There's this area that obviously there's some food represented, that I see the fish, that's always what pops out to me. And there's a button that says start tracking. That is where you would access the nutrition tracker, where you can begin to use those tools in order to keep an eye on your nutritional choices. All right, so a couple of things that I want to make mention of, as we approach the end of today's presentation. And the first of those is a service and support feature that my team launched effective July 1st, okay? So again, many of you, if you've got questions, you've historically reached out to me directly in the past. That is more than okay, all right? I am happy to field those questions. Working with you guys is definitely something that is a pleasure. You're always wonderful and pleasant, and I appreciate that. So you're welcome to do that. But there are times when I do go on vacation. And in those instances where I'm not accessible, you get that bounce back from my personal email that says, hi, I'm out. That would be an instance where I would say, go ahead and tap into our new service and support feature, okay? That service and support feature is a URL that you could navigate to, And it's basically a submission form like you would see in the other websites if you need to get contacted by a vendor, right? So you would select a member, you would enter some information about yourself so that we know who you are, so we can find you in our system. And then you would describe the issue that you're experiencing. And that, once submitted, makes its way to my team here in Cleveland. Okay, so local folks, not it's anybody elsewhere, not out of the state, not out of the country, my direct team members, and they could assist you with your inquiry. So that's what I would say. If you ever get that bounce back from me and you're communicating with me directly and I'm not available because I'm out on vacation, the service and support feature would be an excellent way for you to get your question addressed very, very quickly. Okay? So it probably would be a situation where I would be remiss if I came on site and didn't remind everybody that the preventive exam timeframe is quickly approaching. Okay, so for the last 4 years, and consistent with this year, is the need to have your preventive exam by the 30th of November for your employer-sponsored incentive, okay? So we talked about over the course of many years that you historically needed to get a personalized form. You would take that form with you. With the changes we've made to the program, that personalized form is no longer a necessity, okay? But for those of you who are having your exams really in the months of September, October, November, there is a generic form that we would ask that you have your physician complete. It's something that Bridget has distributed and will continue to distribute. It's basic. It literally just has your name, your doctor signs off that you're up to date with your preventive exams or preventive screenings, and there's no PHI, and then that would be dropped on to Bridget so that she can track that appropriately, okay? It all goes back to the fact that we are certifying those visits via claims, and that claim run out period is 60 to 90 days, okay? We end a period November 30th for our examination. A month later is when those incentives are issued. So that's not enough time from a claim standpoint to have that data to issue your employer-sponsored incentive. That's why that generic form is important here, okay? So very, very easy. Again, once you go, once that claim is in the system, that will start to flow and those rewards will come to you from the ERChealth side. The last note that I will make, something also new that's going to be promoted by your healthcare committee, is the Spark Cities Challenge, okay? So this is a program that's hosted by Oswald Companies. So when I'm here with Ashley and Bridget, my two counterparts, that is something that Oswald puts on each and every year, okay? And it's an opportunity to get involved in kind of a citywide walking or activity program. And you compete as an organization against the other clients that have joined the Spark Cities Challenge. And then there's, of course, an individual leaderboard for people who are really crushing it and want that competitive nature when it comes to having a physical activity program. So that launches September 1st. There's going to be information coming to you. It is optional. It's something that even non-Anthem plan members can participate in. So, you know, you can get your department to engage in it. So it's a good way to kind of keep physical activity present in mind for everybody. And the duration of that program, I believe, is a month. So a lot of excitement, a lot of activity there. It goes much further even than Cleveland. There are other cities across the US that engage and participate. So it's just a great focus on making sure folks are being active. That's a wonderful time of year too. Hopefully the weather starts to cool down a little bit and it's nice to be outside, being physically active and thinking about leading into the holiday season, which I know everyone could benefit from probably getting a little bit more activity early before we get into that time of year. So with that, that concludes the content that I had today. So I want to thank everybody, obviously, for attending, whether you're here in the room or whether you're attending virtually. But now that we are at the end, we can open it up to questions for those of you who have them. And I also will stick around at the end if something is individual and you want to speak to me privately. Yes, sir.
So in regards to the wellness physical.
Mhm.
So, not knowing that we were switching or changing or whatever, my wife got hers done like back in February.
Okay.
So does that count?
Yes, that counts for, so this, let me repeat the question for those who are on the phone. So the question written was, I have a spouse who had their preventive exam in February of this current year. So let me, this is a little bit of a nuance, so let me just kind of explain this. For your employer sponsored incentive, so that discount on the premium, that visit counts, okay? Because that deadline still November 30th, that is encapsulated in that time frame.
Okay, so we would just need to send that form that Bridget has back to her doctor to sign off on
She
it.
probably already did her personalized form in time of February, but we can check on that to make sure, because the personalized form was still in force in February. So I suspect she probably did that, which means we probably already see her as approved on our reporting, but we can double check that. I can get your name at the end and certify that.
I mean, she did that old form.
Yes,
It has
and she
everything,
did
but she didn't send it in because I said we're changing. So
Okay, so have her, well, at that point, we can just certify that she's had the visit, so we would just need her name. You can send that to me, or Bridget can send that to me, and we will have that information captured on the report. Yep, perfect.
Okay, and then
For the, go ahead.
for myself, yeah, for the rewards, I get it, she won't get that until possibly next
Yes.
February,
Correct.
right? But for myself, I'm going for my doc.
Yep.
In September.
Yep.
And all I need to do then is bring that form from Bridget, have the doc sign it, and then eventually you guys will see that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question then was, I have my appointment upcoming in September. I just need to get that new generic form, and the answer is yes. Again, that generic form, you write your name in, you sign it, your physician signed it. There's no personal health information. That's why it can be collected back by HR. And the whole purpose of that is to make sure that your HR team can issue those incentives January 1st. So that's really the key with that new generic form.
But there still is the absolute November 30th deadline.
Correct. November 30th is still the same standard deadline. Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah, back in June, I think it was, when we had meetings, you
Yes.
guys said that there would be a report sent to finance that lists everybody who approved. That's what it's yet to happen. When is that gonna happen?
So are you talking about just standard reporting?
Yeah, as far as who's already approved.
So we had sent a report in July, so we are on a monthly reporting cadence.
Every
There,
time I ask, they say we don't have it.
so the report was sent on July 25th. So that's the timeframe for that first report that's come out since the start of the plan year, which means we are due for a secondary report here. They are coming out usually that third or fourth week of the month as we get into our new cadence of reporting.
We did not circulate that last report, but coming in here, I actually just notified the healthcare committee that the next one we receive, we'll start circulating it, and ultimately, you can check with your healthcare committee member to see whether or not you're showing up on the list. Obviously, if you are not, please do not panic.
Correct.
Keep in mind that claims can lag, up to what, 69
Correct.
days, so.
Yes, and that's, so for those on the virtual component, again, the question was, is the reporting out this far? And the answer is yes, there's some basic reporting that came out in the month of July. We will be sending another report here towards the end of the month of August. It is just once a month, though. That is a change, where historically we would send that reporting weekly. Because we are tied to claims data, we only receive that report one time each month. And again, it may take 60 to 90 days for you to be showing on that report. That's why that generic form is really important. As long as you get that generic form turned into Bridget, that is what will help you to make sure that you've earned that incentive discount starting January 1st. Okay? Yes.
So if an employee just wants to confirm whether or not their visit is being, counted in the sense it's not showing up on the report, 60 days pass by and they're feeling, like they just really want to know, right?
Yep.
Is there someone that can reach out to?
Yes. Okay, great question. So the question is, okay, so if I have my exam and I'm, wanting to make sure it does show up on a report, and we're approaching that 60 to 90 day time frame, and I'm still hearing from members of my healthcare committee that my name is not showing as approved, what is my next step? Your next step in that instance would be to reach out to me. So in that scenario, you reach out to me and I guide you through a workaround experience that will capture you in that data. So this is a much less rigid, is the word I will use, structure than when we had that personalized form, okay? So it's important to know that if that, for whatever reason, if you went, let's say, a scenario I think will of course occur is for anybody who has ongoing care with their physician. So I certainly over the years have encountered members who say, you know, I go once a quarter or twice a year to see my doctor for the maintenance of my condition. And because I have that regular check-in, my doctor codes it as a diagnostic visit, but treats it like my preventive exam, at least at one of those junctures, right? That absolutely happens. So in that scenario, because the claims system would identify that as a diagnostic visit, it wouldn't be pulled into the information we are receiving, okay? But that's what that workaround process is for, where we can manually trigger that information and have that information then flow to us in reporting. So that has definitely been thought about because we know we will encounter that. But again, it's a lot less rigid when we think about the fact that that form was something that, you know, was really the Bible of whether somebody had that visit or not. We are able to be a little bit more flexible in our approach now that we've moved away from that personalized form.
I think the report's gonna be super helpful, but I do wanna make sure everybody knows in the event that you prefer just to submit the form that we have, the internal form, even if your visit, you know, it doesn't fall within those 3 months, that we're suggesting you use it, please do.
Mhm.
You know, you're more than welcome to do that. So either option works.
Yep, and that's actually, I just went for my preventive exam last Friday and, you know, I had my form with me and it was just a scenario where it was a generic form. And it was a change. My physician said, well, you know, don't we need to wait for your blood work results to come back? I said, no. I said, it's just a generic form at this point. I'm gonna take it with me. And she signed off on that and I physically had that so that I could turn that into my employer, so that they could track that. So again, a lot less rigid, you know, and I know that we've kind of had that really stern approach with how things were measured historically. So it is a little bit of a shift, but we will take care of you. That's what I want to make sure you hear loud and clear, that we, as long as you have your exam, that's the most important thing, and we will get that certified. Yes, sir.
Did you, so when I go for my regular checkup, tell my doctor to code this as a preventative screening?
Yes, so for those of you attending virtually, the question is, when I go for my appointment, is it a good practice to say to my physician office staff and physician that this is my preventive screening or wellness visit, however you want? Those two words, in many cases, are used interchangeably. That is always the best practice. That helps them to understand the nature of your visit, because there's of course a disconnect between you making that phone call months in advance to schedule the appointment, and then when you actually physically show up. And that's been something that I think physician office staffs have not been great about, kind of adopting a more comprehensive mindset around that visit, but that's always the best practice affiliated with this process. It helps to ensure it's coded correctly the first time. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry if this is a repeat, but we did have this situation in our office. So if it is coded wrong, and you said there is a workaround.
Yes.
What is the exact work, or like,
So,
what's the process
Yep,
to
so
get
the
it?
process, the question for those attending virtually is, you know, if it is coded incorrectly, what is that workaround process? So it's a two-part process. The first part is the request that you would reach out to your physician office and see if they are willing to code it correctly on the front end. Some of them may say yes. I suspect many will probably say, nope, these are the codes we feel are appropriate for that visit, and that's what it's gonna be. If you run into that scenario, which again, I suspect probably would be the majority, that's when you're able to reach out to my team or directly to the Anthem Health Guides, that's the member services number on the back of your ID card. Explain that you had a preventive exam that was coded incorrectly, and they will automatically issue you that reward. We have that blanket approval with Anthem because we know that this is something that will come for members.
Oh,
Yes.
One follow-up question. I think part of the problem was, you know, if, for people who might have 2 visits a year
Yes.
instead of 1.
Mhm.
So does it have to be that full year? So if they're having, so like if it's technically only 6 months, but it's in that, between that new January 1st through June 30th period, but it's the first appointment within that period, if it's not a full year and only 6 months, do you still qualify for that?
So there's a lot of nuance with that question. The first thing I want to state, just as always, a great reminder, is that the way your Anthem plan covers a preventive exam is once per calendar year. So in theory, as it's, kind of illustrating this most extreme example, you theoretically could have a visit December 31st, flip the calendar into the new year, have one on January 1st, and both of those would be covered at 100% because they are in different calendar years, okay? Now, the piece with that I just want you to keep in mind is that although that gives you the ability to avoid a situation where maybe your appointment last year was November 29th, I'm sure there was nobody who was getting their appointment in at the very, very end of things, that you could move it up a little bit, let's say the 15th of November or November 1st, because physicians still are not gonna wanna see you 6 months after your last visit or a new preventive exam, just because it can be covered in a new plan or a new calendar year. So that's where it's a little bit important to understand, and their mind still to really have a picture of your health. They want it to be around 12 months for the preventive exam, because there's usually not enough of a significant change in a 6-month period for it to be meaningful in their eyes to have that marker each year to understand where your overall health is. Okay. Yes, Steve. Do you have a follow-up question?
That's okay. I mean, could someone that like potentially miss that whole window? Like if they had it in July, but that one doesn't qualify because it's only 6 months. So then they'd have to squeeze one in like at the end of
So the
December.
visit in July would be, what type of visit are you?
So like if they have twice a year and they had one in July, but it doesn't qualify because they had one already, maybe in the very beginning of the year.
I mean, it would qualify for the employer inside.
For the reward, okay,
Yeah,
good,
for
okay,
sure.
perfect.
Yep. Yeah, it's just, it's a difference of kind of how it would be
Got it.
actually covered by
Yeah.
the plan itself, but it absolutely would qualify for that November 30th deadline.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions in the room or even virtually? I think chat might be a good way to submit those virtually if you're attending via Teams.
I've got kind of a general question to the group. So I've been in the city app quite often. Has anybody else found that it takes forever to do anything in the app? You get on something and you click on it, and then you'll see the. Yeah. And then the screen just goes blank, and then you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. I mean, while we were here, I got my $25 this month.
Okay.
So I redeemed the rewards. It took 15 minutes to do
To
it.
do that. Okay, so for those on the phone, I just want to relay that so that you're not excluded from the commentary. The commentary is anyone else experiencing kind of a lag in the Sydney Health app? And my follow-up question to you is, I suspect that lag, when folks are saying that, is generally in the rewards area. Would you say that's correct? Or if you've gone to claims, has there been a lag? Or if you've gone to find care, has there been a lag with any of those?
Yeah, the
Okay.
green, I mean, you'll see the circle going around, and then your screen just goes blank for a while, white, and then you wait.
Yeah, a little bit of I see it, I see it.
But yeah, it literally took, yeah.
Name, can I ask you, are you in the My Rewards area where, yeah, okay, so My Rewards definitely has a bit of a lag. And that's what for us, it's really helpful to identify at what places within the app that's occurring. Because if it's not find care, if it's not pharmacy, if it's not check my EOB, it's specific to the My Rewards area. And that's information we need to be able to relay to the Sydney team to see if there's anything that they can be working on their end to ensure that it's a much faster experience.
Okay.
So that would be my question to you guys, is to do a little bit of research on your own, poke around. If you find it's in other areas other than My Rewards, that is something we definitely need to look at as well to see if there's issues with the larger experience.
Are we able to input I guess use the website the same way we would use the app?
Great question. So
Yeah.
the question was, can we use the website within the same way we use the app? And the answer is yes. So your Anthem.com login information is the same as your Sydney Health login. So those are one and the same. And you can use Anthem.com in the same capacity that you use your Sydney Health app. So good question. That was similar to how we lived in the mental health consumer world, where you had a URL and an app that you could use simultaneously if you wanted to do so. Good question. Any other questions? All have been really good. So I will say, again, as we, work through things, when we launched mobile health consumer 7 years ago, before you guys were even in the program, there were definitely some road bumps we had to work through. And hearing from you directly about things that are challenging or things that aren't functioning properly is the only way within which we can take that information back to the city team to say, hey, something's not functioning as it should. So definitely keep those pieces coming. That's something you can submit to our service and support team. You can email me directly. We have a weekly call with that team and are emailing them consistently, pretty much every single day. We're knocking on their door for something just to make sure everything's moving as it should. So we appreciate your patience if there have been some frustrations. I do see we have one message coming through, I think, on chat.
Maggie actually had a suggestion. She said if you turn off your Wi-Fi and use data, the response time is quicker.
I did that too.
Thank you, Maggie.
So the chat message was, if, at least for one member, the experience was that if she was getting off her Wi-Fi and using data, it was populating faster for her. We did, I will say, have the experience with mobile health consumer that, and this was a known thing for us over the 7 years that we were partnered with them. They are West Coast based. And they had updates that would be going on in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, that would slow the experience down, okay? Mobile health consumer is the back end reward engine for City Health. So it's still mobile health consumers who are issuing those rewards. And I suspect because that's some of their system processing, that is likely why it's slow. So we were always told that that happens more typically in the morning than it does in the afternoon because of that time difference in where they are located and the times within which they have updates pushing through. So I can't say whether for sure that's accurate, but that's something that I suspect may be at play.
A quick question, just with the general or generic form that the doctor gets, is that on Sydney? Because obviously nobody's carrying around an extra blank form in my
You're
wallet.
not?
Well, I'll destroy it anyway, so is it like a downloadable form off of Sydney where if I'm at the doctor, I'll grab it? Got that?
Great question. So the question for those attending virtually is this generic form, essentially, where do I retrieve this generic form? It is not on City. That's not an area where we have the opportunity to do any customization. But that is something that Bridget has, and I'm sure will be circulating in many emails as we get close to that deadline. So you would certainly want to print it from an email you receive. But it could be, you know, even if your coworker had it and they gave it to you because they knew where it was in email, of course that works because it's generic. Yep. Yes, we have one more. 4 minutes. Okay, we're doing good.
Any other questions?
Speak now, or peace. Yes, I will be around for those attending in the room. You're welcome to ask questions of me. I'll stick around a little bit towards the end, but I just, again, want to thank you all for your attentiveness. And again, I know learning the processes are not always the easiest thing, so I appreciate all of your patience and support.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.